This is Dana Steele. I lost my mother, Fran Nicholson, to Alzheimer's. I remember being absolutely blindsided by the diagnosis. I thought I knew what it was, but I had no idea where to start, where to go, what to do, what questions to ask, or what was coming. So I posted on Facebook. My mom was diagnosed with early stages of Alzheimer's today. Facebook became my community and my support and my therapy group. If I didn't know what to do, you did. When Mom died, I decided I would tell our story, the good, the bad, even the funny, to try to help families and let caregivers know you are not alone. Speak up, reach out, ask for help, and remember there is no right way or wrong way to do this. I've now told my story for years. In a book titled Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a Really Big Glass of Wine. In a play, The Woman in the Mirror, which will be running the month of March in Palm Springs, California at the Revolution Stage Company. And now in a podcast. And now I want to hear your story. I want others to hear your story. I want to tell your story. This is #Surviving Alzheimer's. Hey, it's Dana Steele. I am recording this today in the living room of a hotel in Brazil near Iguazu Falls. So a little bit of ambient noise in the background, but hopefully you can hear me just fine. On today's episode, I talked to my go-to legal expert on matters of elder care and so much more, attorney Betsy Grubbs. Today, it's the most important documents you should have as an adult, not just for someone who has Alzheimer's or another disease. I even had a lot of these documents for my sons when they went off to college. You'll also hear scenes from my play, The Woman in the Mirror, and I promise I'll have links to everything in the episode description. Hey, how are you?
I'm great, Dana. It's good to be here today.
Well, I am just I'm thrilled you're going to do this again. I know we've done this several times, but I don't think we can say enough times, hey, you need these documents, whether you're sick or not, or have Alzheimer's or you're 20. I don't care. You need these documents. By the way, I should preface all this with saying there's a lovely dog that lives next door. We're in our townhouse in Houston. His name is Steve. And Steve has trained me that when he barks, I get up and go outside and give him a treat. And so Steve may be barking in the background because he has me very well trained at this point. Betsy Grubbs, my go-to legal expert when we're talking documents and elder care law and documents and things you need to have. It's so overwhelming with the sheer number of things you need to have and you need to have taken care of. So what I'd like to do is start with can you narrow it down to the 5 most important documents you should have so we don't overwhelm people, and then we'll move from there?
Sure. And I know you and I've done this before, but I've had some recent experiences which have made some of my top 5 even more important. So the top 5 things that I think everybody needs to have are a will, which is a document that controls the who, what, and how somebody gets your stuff when you pass away. The state of Texas has a plan for you. It may not be your plan. The next document is a statutory durable power of attorney. That is a fancy word for a business power of attorney to allow someone to manage your affairs while you're still alive if you are just don't want to do it anymore, or you're simply unable to do it because you are incapacitated in some way or just don't have the physical ability to do that. The third document is a medical power of attorney, which is a document that allows someone to make medical decisions for you if you are unable to make them. The fourth document is an advance directive, also known as a living will. That is a document that used to tell your loved ones how you want to be treated in the last 6 months of your life, meaning you've been diagnosed with either a terminal illness or a incurable illness, so, or irreversible condition. And then the fifth thing I think is important for people to have is a HIPAA release. And that is a document. Every time we go to the doctor, we just sign whatever they put in front of us. And there's all this fancy HIPAA language in there that actually HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. And that allows your medical providers to talk to someone other than you about your health and care plan. That's especially important if you have more than one child and mixed and blended families too, because it allows the doctors to talk to people, but not necessarily allows anybody to make decisions for you.
You know, when I first got the diagnosis, this was a project. I was going to attack this like every other project. You know, you research it, you plan it, you organize it, it'd be just fine. Boy, was I in for a surprise. It just takes an emotional and physical toll on you like nothing else. It's time consuming, it's costly, and oh Lord, the paperwork.
And I told you that since we last talked, there are some things that have made me really focus in on a couple of these documents. And the first one being the medical power of attorney. I have had several experiences with clients over the last couple of months where the importance of a medical power of attorney, even for a surviving or a spouse, is so important. Two instances, couple was traveling in a state other than Texas. They have been married for 30 years. Husband gets down, ends up in the hospital. The hospital would not let the wife in to make decisions or have a consult with the doctor because she did not have a medical power of attorney. And Dana, I'm looking at you because I know you're doing this
I have one. I have
road
one.
trip right now. But
I've got insurance. I bought the, top of the line insurance where they put my ass on an airplane and fly me home if they have to. Right. And we both have, and it's in our files that we can access. We have the top 5. I get an A+ today. We have the top 5 for each other, as well as others, which we're going to talk about after the break. So that's one couple. You said you had another experience.
Yes, where it was a husband and wife situation. She just simply did not have the papers in place to be making these medical decisions for him. And there's a situation where the problem is there is a remedy for that, and it's to go to the courthouse and get appointed as a guardian. And that takes money. B, it takes time. And you're in a situation where you're trying to deal with your loved one, and there's just simply not that kind of time to go to the courthouse. So you're struggling to be able to make those decisions. So to me right now, based on my previous couple of months, the medical power of attorney is so important. Secondly, that business power of attorney. I have a very dear friend that her mother had the SNAP, but she did not have the physical ability to get to the bank. So we're not in that scenario. She had a statutory durable power of attorney, but it had the language in there that it was only effective upon her disability. And disability was defined as the mental disability to be able to take care of her affairs. And mom was furious that it was going to require for that document to work, it was going to require a doctor certifying that she did not have the mental capacity. So we updated it, and with a current effective power of attorney that was effective immediately so that the daughter could go and take care of all of mom's affairs, because nobody ever wants to be told you no longer have the ability to take care of your affairs.
Well, and I found out, fortunately, mom was still ambulatory. I could put her in the car. She wasn't happy about it, but that Social Security wasn't going to accept the power of attorney. I needed other documents. I had to take her with me to say, yes, this is my daughter, Dana, and she can take care of things. So, and when you're going through this, when you're in the middle of an emergency, you're in the middle of an Alzheimer's diagnosis, you're in the middle of whatever it is, you're not thinking straight. And just like you said, it takes time, it takes money. If you have to get an attorney, if you have to go to the courthouse, if you just have to track Betsy down and go, I need this updated, I need something fast. It's really really frightening. And I try to tell people all the time, do this now, do this now. All three of my children, the youngest son, children, they're grown men, lovely grown men. The youngest is 24, but I have made sure when they went off to college, I made sure we had all five of these documents. So they have wills, they have powers of attorney, they have medical power of attorney, they have HIPAAs. I have copies of everything. They have copies of all of our things. But I'm not the norm. I'm anal retentive to a fault. I'm not the norm. What age do you advise people to do this at?
Well, I think, and you just brought up a good point. I think that when somebody has the capacity to contract, which is at 18, I think that they need some basic plans. And you just brought up a good point about kids going off to college. And there is a separate body of law that relates to parents being able to get access to the kids' information, their health information. And kids generally don't think about these things. Oh, I'm going off to college. I don't want mom and dad in my business, and mom and dad get angry because the kid's flunking out, but they can't get access to their records. And that's a conversation that needs to be had with your kids when they're going off to college. I think each university has a set of forms that they like for kids to sign so that the parents can get access to the grades, the medical information, because there's generally a medical clinic on site. As a example, I had a family that came to me. The university was not allowed to talk to the family because they did not have these documents in place. It wasn't until the child called dad and said, I've got 24 hours to get off the campus, come get me, that parents even realized that there was anything wrong. But that was something a little bit different. That's
Well,
not the
think of
subject.
it this way also. What happens if your child, your wonderful college-age child has gone off to college, they are off campus and they get into a car accident, they get into something and they have to go to the
Absolutely.
hospital. The university records aren't going to help you. The university releases aren't going to help you, are they?
No, they're not. So having those standard, who's in charge if I can't make those medical decisions, and who do you call? And I'm going to circle back to you and your journey around the world right now. You said you have everything electronically. Dana, there are places that you go to that may not necessarily have internet access or the
I thought
ability to
about
print.
that as I said it, and I wrote
So
myself a note, print
print
everything
it
out.
out. At a minimum, print out your medical power of attorney and your business power of attorney and perhaps the HIPAA document, because you may be someplace where you can't get access to the internet, and print them double-sided. That's fine. Just something, and keep it in your luggage. As you know, and mom did authorize me to tell this story. My mother has had a medical journey over the last 6 to 9 months where she is going through cancer treatment again. Things are different than they were 10 years ago when she was diagnosed and then beat cancer, and it's now come back. All of the hospital records are electronic. Nobody has paper files anymore. So them being able to easily access those things and having a physical paper copy to put in front of the doctor so that they can talk to me at various times is sometimes a lot easier than the doctor trying to find the appropriate staff member to get into that particular section of the computer so that they can figure out whether or not they're authorized to speak to your loved one. So just having especially if you're traveling, having a copy with you, the medical power of attorney. And I've told you, and that was actually in the United States where that couple had that problem, where the different states have different laws about who can make those decisions. So,
well, yes, ma'am. I will print these out. We're talking about, you named the top five. I'm going to put that in the podcast description. So if you didn't have a chance to write all that down, I'm going to put it. It'll all be right there in the description of this particular episode. Betsy helped me quite extensively with a thing I call the family questions on the website, survivingalzheimerspodcast.com. I think it's a list of about 28 questions now. And it's, do you have a will? Where is it? Do you have a safe deposit box? Do you have military papers, marriage license? We're going to come back after the break and talk about maybe some of the other documents. We've talked about the top five, but there's so much more that I know I was asked for and that you are probably going to be asked for.
This podcast is brought to you in part by the book Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine.
When Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I posted it on Facebook. What started as a way to let friends and family know Mom had Alzheimer's turned into a support system for me, and from that turned into a support system and a community. The first half of the book is the Facebook post, and that's to give people a sense of you're not alone. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's okay to laugh at inappropriate things. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say bad words, drink wine, and throw things. The other half of the book is very important resources for caregivers. The one thing I want you to take away is you never know. Love your family. Love everyone. Take every adventure. Do everything, but also make sure you have everything ready to go and you're organized in the background, so that when all is said and done, you have lived today. I wish I had known. And if I wish I had known, I think there's other people that wish they could know what's coming next.
Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine is available at Amazon in paperback and Kindle versions. And now, back to the podcast, Surviving Alzheimer's with Dana Steele.
Every once in a while, you will hear a scene from my play, The Woman in the Mirror, during these podcast episodes. And as I said in the play in this episode, oh, the paperwork. It really was overwhelming. And every time I thought I had everything I needed, someone wanted another document from me. And no matter how important it was to get something done for my mom, no one would do anything until I had that document. So we're back with Betsy Grubbs. Betsy, a friend of mine, a lawyer of mine, helping me in so many ways. She really helped me put together the list of family questions you can find on the website, survivingalzheimerspodcast.com. It's under resources, or you can just scroll down, click on it, and it is a printable list of about 28 questions. One of the questions I added as we were finishing up this list a couple of years ago was, do you have animals? If you do, what do you want me to do with them? Because Mom used to always joke with me, well, Dana's going to take Sandy. And guess what? Dana took Sandy. Dana had that damn dog lived to be 18 years old. Oh, but she was an amazing dog. But who's your vet? Who are your neighbors? What are your passwords? Who do you want me to call? But right now, this particular episode, we're talking about documents you need. Betsy giving us the 5 most important documents: the will, the statutory durable power of attorney, the medical power of attorney, the advanced directive, also known as a living will, and the HIPPA release. There were other documents that I had to go find, and I was just, I was on the verge of tears almost all the time when I was going through the last part of Dad's life and then going through the last part of Mom's life. So the last thing I wanted to do was have to go to the courthouse and find things, but I did. I had to get online. I had to cry. I had to be mean. I had to stand strong to find these documents, and they're not easy. And sometimes you need them immediately. I needed my parents' marriage license. I needed my dad's death certificate. I needed my dad's separation papers from the military from the 1950s. He was a typist in the Army in Alaska. Where the hell am I going to find that? So I was eventually able to get all of it, and I still have it, but I've also made sure that our 3 sons have all of Charlie's military papers. They're going to, if they have to get into our documents, they're going to discover we were married before we got married. So there are actually 2 marriage licenses. I'll let them figure that out. Other documents you would recommend other than your top 5?
Yes, I think that important also in there, you talked about your dad's separation papers from the military, and that's the DD-214. It's generally recorded in the county clerk's office where they discharged to, meaning my uncle and my father were living in Brazoria County when they discharged from the Army. That was where the documents were located. This is not something you can find online. You have to go physically in person to the county clerk's office, give them your loved one's information, and they can pull it right up. That information is not available online, and you cannot order it remotely. You have to either go in person yourself or send somebody into the county clerk's office. So and the reason that that's important for veterans benefits, it's important for survivors benefits, it's important for the stipend that you get for the burial benefits. It's important
I discovered my dad served even though he was a typist in Alaska, he was still in the Army, and it was World War II. That made my mom eligible. I think we ended up getting, oh gosh, close to $20,000 in funds from a government veterans fund for veterans that specifically served in World War II if their surviving spouse were in a senior living facility. Now, how I found that out, I don't even remember, and I was very fortunate to get a gentleman who was involved with the program that lived in Houston and was nearby to walk me through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was great money to find. It's gone in 4 months, but with the cost of, senior living now. But I mean, I had to have all these documents.
Yes. And another document that I think that is important especially for blended families, and for clarification, to me, a blended family is where you have perhaps a starter marriage and maybe children from that starter marriage, and then you have a divorce, and then you have a second marriage. Traditionally, everybody would assume that the second wife gets to control everything. That's not necessarily the case. And that's especially important why you need to have a will. I know I'm circling back around to that, because even if you buy property in Texas or in a community property state during that marriage, and you don't have a will that leaves it to your surviving spouse, you know who inherits? It's the kids from the previous marriage inherit the deceased parent's portion. But coming back around to the blended families, an appointment of a guardian may be important. And that's just a document that you could fill out, because you may have children that are bad with money. You may have children that are less than touchy-feely about caregiving. So perhaps you need to designate the person who is better at caregiving as the potential guardian of your person, and then the person who is better with money as a potential guardian of your estate.
And don't feel like you're picking favorites. I recently did an interview with my sister-in-law, Joanne, about going through this experience with her mom. And I loved her phrase, I was honored.
And in the end, after everything's done, I realized what an honor that she trusted me so much with her well-being and her finances. She made it very clear, not just to me, but to others, that she wanted me to care for her.
You have to. You just quit worrying about, oh, I'm going to make somebody mad, or I'm going to upset all of my children if I designate this person to take care of this and this person to take care of that. Believe me, it causes a lot less pain. It may hurt some feelings, but if you have it designated, it is done, and just do it. When it's not designated, that's when it gets really nasty and mean. You just save everybody a lot of grief and a lot of time if you have all this written down.
Yes. And another document that can help save hurt feelings is an appointment for disposition of remains. These are all based on Texas law, because obviously I'm licensed to practice in Texas. There may be documents from other states that work this way too. But that is a document that allows you to appoint someone to be in charge of your funeral. There is a natural order of selection about who is supposed to be in charge of your funeral. Generally, it's the surviving spouse. If you don't have a surviving spouse, then it's your children. And if it's not your children, if you don't have any children, then it's your parents. And then it keeps going on down the list. Where I have seen this be very effective is, let's say that the mom and the children don't have the same religious beliefs, and they want to be cremated versus not cremated or something like that. And there may be certain standards for funerals and interment based on their religious beliefs that they want as well. So appointing somebody that has your same core fundamental values as you do to be in charge of that is important. Now, understand, whoever is appointed gets to pay the bill legally. So appointing somebody and then maybe having some funds available for them to do that as well, if it's going to create a problem.
Question. I have that all spelled out. Wonder Husband and I have that all spelled out in our wills, exactly what we want done. Do I need an additional document or is it okay in the will? It's like a really bad comedy routine or something. Every time you think you've got it all put together, now I find out, just right now from doing this podcast, that even though my wishes are in my will, I need yet another document. More on that in just a minute. Hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's is brought to you by The Woman in the Mirror, an on-stage manual disguised as a dark comedy for navigating Alzheimer's with love, laughter, and a little bit of wine. You can help bring the play to the Revolution Stage Company in Palm Springs, California in March with a tax-deductible donation to our grant fund. There's a link in this episode's description and on our website at survivingalzheimerspodcast.com. It is my love letter to caregivers. Remember, when it comes to Alzheimer's, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Now, back to more of Surviving Alzheimer's. So, if a will has to go to probate, which could take forever, it may take some time before your wishes that are spelled out in that can be honored. So some of those wishes could be, your burial, your cremation, your funeral, and you want that taken care of sooner rather than later. So yes, more paperwork so things can be taken care of.
It's okay in the will because at least it's something. But the problem is a will is not effective as a legal document until it is admitted to probate at the courthouse, until a judge signs off and says, that is the last will and testament. It has not been revoked, etc. Now, having that separate standalone document that's available under the Health and Safety Code is a good advisory for a simple, easy 1-page, 2-page document. Now, the funeral home will perhaps look at the will if you have a will that is appointing somebody or says what you want done for your funeral. But again, where is it? It's probably locked in a safety deposit box somewhere. Do you need to get a court order to get in there if you don't have somebody else on your safety deposit box? There is a procedure in Texas to go to a safety deposit box to look for a will, if that's where the document is. All that takes time. And funeral homes are in the business of providing services to family. But remember, I said they're in a business also. So there is a natural progression of who gets to be in charge, and they're not going to wait around too long to frankly keep you on ice waiting for somebody to give them a decision. Now, this is especially written documentation about your funeral wishes is especially important if you want to be cremated. Now, we've talked about a lot of forms, and I wanted a referral to a resource. In Texas, there is something called texaslawhelp.org. And it is a place where people can get a lot of these forms. They are put out by the various bar groups in Texas. Some of them are put out by the Supreme Court of Texas. And again, it's texaslawhelp.org. And there are a lot of self-help forms that people can go to just as a good starting point. I was thinking about what we might talk about today, and that was one of the things. We can talk about a lot of things, but if people don't know how to get the documents, it doesn't do any good to talk about it. The first place is obviously whatever resources you can find on the internet. Just get something. Something is better than nothing most of the time. But these resources like texaslawhelp.org, there may be resources in other states available to you where you can get access to these forms online. I would be careful about using something that doesn't look like a secure website, because you don't want to be putting all your personal information into something that doesn't have the secure information on it.
Be very careful with that. Be very careful. We're telling you specifically where you can go, texaslawhelp.org. You can look in your state and find something similar, but
also
please make sure it's legitimate, because I remember I needed a W-2, W-9. I never can remember which W it is, but I needed the form from my body man for my campaign in 2018, and he filled it out on a bogus, instead of the IRS official form. He just looked up W-9 or whatever it was and filled it out online, and it was a bogus site. So,
and then that bogus site now has all of his personal information.
Well, we
So-
could talk about documents for 10 hours, but it's a short podcast. Caregivers don't have that much time. Give me a few final thoughts, information, websites,
Sure.
whatever you got.
Sure. The other thing that I wanted to remind people is update your beneficiary designations on your insurance policies, your bank accounts, your retirement accounts, especially if you have a primary beneficiary that has either been divorced or has passed, because updating that information is very helpful to your beneficiaries and your survivors. Because to be very frank, when somebody is either going through this on this side of the grave or has just lost a loved one, the last thing they want to do is be worrying about where everything is, trying to track things down, because they're still grieving and they need that time to grieve. The other thing too, and this is something that has come up recently too, when you lose a loved one, unless you have an emergency situation, don't do anything in a hurry. Don't rush out and pay off the house with the life insurance. Talk to someone to make sure that that house really does belong to you before you go spending your life insurance. Take a minute, breathe. Don't make any huge decisions for several months unless there's an emergency situation. Obviously, keeping the lights on, keeping the water on, and if the house is, heaven forbid, facing foreclosure, you need to do something. And talk to a professional, talk to a lawyer. Don't talk to the lady down the street that went through this with her grandmother 15 years ago. Try to find a lawyer, because everybody on the neighborhood groups may not have all the right answers. So,
And there are free legal services all
Absolutely.
over the country. You can definitely find free legal services if needed. Have an I love you drawer. I've always loved that. An I love you drawer that everybody knows where it is. It may be, the bottom drawer of your desk, whatever. An I love you drawer. I have an I love you file in the closet, and the three sons know where it is. And it has copies of all of these. And as we do update things, I had it all for Mom. I remember Wonder Husband's dad had this all put together for us, and it did just make saying goodbye a little easy. It's never easy to say goodbye, but
Right.
It did make it easier because we didn't have to go look for all these things, and everything was written down. All the wishes were there. My mom had her obituaries written, which, by the way, that's a whole nother thing I learned. You know how newspapers make money now? It's not off of ads. It's off of obituaries. Those suckers are expensive now.
They are.
They are not free. Well, thank you. How can people find you?
My website is tlaw.us, and they can go there, and all my contact information is there.
Fantastic. And again, there'll be a description with links for this particular episode and help you put all these together. And you can go to survivingalzheimerspodcast.com, click on resources or scroll down, and you can print out a list of the family questions talking about a lot of these documents. So thanks, Betsy.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Please, please, please get these documents together now. Start your own I love you drawer, I love you file, I love you something. Physical papers where they can all be easily found by your loved ones when they need one. And download the family questions from survivingalzheimerspodcast.com. In fact, with Thanksgiving coming up, you're probably going to see your family, maybe a whole bunch of family. Take everyone a copy. That'll be a lot of fun with the turkey and gravy. By the way, if you like the original music my friend Jeannie Cunningham wrote and performs for this podcast, you'll hear it in every episode. It's called I Remember. Stick around at the end and I will let the entire song play out so that you can hear it. It's really quite lovely, and I think I will make it eventually available on Spotify. Thanks. Thanks for listening to #Surviving Alzheimer's. The podcast is produced by Blue Squirrel Productions and JFA Entertainment. Dana Steele, me, executive producer. It's brought to you by the book Surviving Alzheimer's, with friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine, available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. You'll be able to see the play, The Woman in the Mirror, in Palm Springs, California at the Revolution Stage Company in March of 2024. The original music in the podcast, I Remember, was written and is performed by Jeannie Cunningham. If you have questions, something you'd like to share, or you'd like to tell me your story, you'll find the corresponding links in this episode's description. And do me a favor, please subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and family. And as Mom always said, I love you, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck.